Right after I stepped out of the Phantom, my phone buzzed. It was Liam. Chloe and I had cleared the air, and he wanted to take me out to dinner as a thank you. I wanted to treat him, but I had no idea what his palate was like. Actually, I did know. He liked the kind of food I would need to take out alone to afford. I was hesitating when the feed started scrolling. The villainess can't afford him. But Silas has deep pockets. Silas was literally written into existence to be a lapdog for the toxic sidekick. He looks like a killer, but he's all talk. Spent 10 years obsessing over her and never even got a kiss. If she slaps him, he rides that high for a month. He looks like a pit bull but acts like a toy poodle. Summon the dog. I turned around and walked right back to the femme, knocked twice on the tinted glass. The window rolled down, framing the villain's dangerously sharp profile. I leaned casually against the doorframe, let a little bratty entitlement bleed into my voice. Husband, I'm starving. Silas shoved the heavy door open, gestured for me to get back in, that twisted smile playing on his lips again. Whatever the wife wants. I dropped the name of Chloe's favourite Michelin-starred French spot, panoramic river views, the kind of place that was notoriously impossible to book. Consider it done. Silas was practically vibrating with enthusiasm, snapped his fingers and ordered the driver to roll out. Thanks to Silas's financial brute force, the main couple's first official date went off without a hitch. When Chloe got back to the dorm, she interrogated me. Who exactly is Liam? Is he secretly old money or something? How the hell did he rent out that entire restaurant? I kept the fabrication engine running hot. Liam told me not to tell you. But I can't keep it to myself. He paid for that dinner by blowing 3 months of tutoring money. He didn't want you to feel any kind of regret just because he's broke right now. He said he can always make more cash. But he wasn't going to let his girlfriend experience a single second of mediocrity on their first date. Chloe was absolutely wrecked by the romance of it all. She made it official right then and there. We're eating at the dining hall from now on. Her new boyfriend, Liam, texted me the second it happened in absolute hysterics. Holy shit. Holy shit. I got the license. I'm officially off the market. 5 seconds later, Chloe's phone lit up with a notification. Okay, girlfriend. Recently, there was this girl in our program on financial aid. She kept hovering around Liam, always asking for advice on grant applications and campus jobs. Always dropping these heavily coded comments about how jealous she was that he had a girlfriend who didn't understand the struggle. The scent of manipulative garbage was overpowering. It was time to run the main couple through an exposure therapy boot camp. Time to throw some gasoline on the fire right in front of the female lead. Liam really has no boundaries. Why is he always letting that girl get so close? Chloe was a straight shooter. She couldn't handle the psychological warfare. She confronted Liam and it blew up into a massive fight. I took the opportunity to whisper in Liam's ear, told him my best friend was secretly disappointed by his kissing technique. Said she was constantly looking for an excuse to get aggressively kissed just to see what it felt like. Oh, and I added that she was an exhibitionist. She liked it rough, especially if there was an audience. So, with the broke girl standing right there watching, Liam picked a fight with Chloe and followed the instructions perfectly, pinned her against the wall and kissed her senseless. When the first one didn't take, he did it 2 more times. My best friend was absolutely buzzing. After that, whenever another girl tried to close the distance on Liam, before my roommate could even process the jealousy, he deployed the nuclear option. I spent weeks aggressively coaching Liam, lecturing him on how to spot manipulative women and enforce rigid emotional boundaries, until finally, one afternoon, Chloe slumped onto her desk, looking genuinely distressed. I think my boyfriend is too disciplined. If a girl even breathes in his direction, he practically vaults over a table to get away. We've been together 3 years, and he hasn't given me a single reason to be jealous. By junior year, the art of the hustle was perfected. I was applying for early entry into the graduate program. I took a train back to my hometown to organize my legal documents. My parents sat me down for an intervention. My dad was wringing his hands, looking anywhere but at me. Look, we know you're smart. But for a girl, getting a bachelor's degree is the absolute ceiling. Look at the neighbor's kid. She went to community college. Now she's married to a guy who runs a manufacturing plant. Dripping in gold. Set for life. My mom jumped in, playing the exhaustion card. We paid your way through college. We did our part. Your brother is at the age where he needs to find a wife. We don't have a dime left. You can't just be selfish and keep climbing the ladder for yourself. You have to think about this family. Go out, get a steady job, and hand over the debit card. We'll manage the savings for you. My dad nodded furiously. Use your looks while you still have them. Lock down a guy with deep pockets. Start having kids immediately so your position in his family is secure. Nobody wants an aging spinster. No matter how many degrees you have, your market value tanks. The feed was lighting up with rage. Where are my Midwesterners at? Hold me back. I can't take this. I'm going in. The villainess has it the worst. Fighting protagonists and psychopaths at school, and comes home to these two absolute leeches. She's suffocating. When I hit a wall with logic, I just shut down. Somebody open the gates. Unleash Jax. Since I was a kid, I never bothered arguing with them. Once a worldview hardens into concrete, you can't break it with words. They were born in the dirt, and their vision never left the dirt. I didn't need them to understand me. I saved my energy and walked the path I cut for myself. In the dead of night, I was jolted awake by the sound of smashing glass and screaming. I sprinted out into the concrete courtyard. The blood in my veins turned to ice. The documents that held the keys to my entire future. My grad school applications were scattered across the cracked cement. Half of them were sitting in a rusted enamel wash basin, engulfed in flames, blackening into ash. The recommendation letter, signed in ink by the department chair, was burning away until only the corner remained. My dad was still fighting to throw more papers into the fire. No more school, I said, no more school. Jax had completely snapped. He was wielding a heavy wooden carrying pole, beating my dad like a rented mule. You stupid son of a bitch. Our family hits the genetic lottery, breeds an actual genius. And you brain-dead old fool, you light it all on fire, burn it. Let's see how you like burning. My dad was howling in pain. Mutiny. This is mutiny. I'm your father. My mom saw she couldn't stop the beating, grabbed a pair of sewing shears and threatened to end herself. Frankie, what kind of poison did you feed your brother? You're a woman. What good is a doctorate? You're just gonna marry out of the family anyway. Every dollar we spent on you could have been a down payment for your brother's house. Where is your gratitude? If your brother hadn't stepped aside and let you go to school, where would you be right now? When I was a kid, that speech would have crushed me, but now I was just numb, hollow. I genuinely didn't have the time to play out this domestic tragedy. I was too busy wondering what fresh hell the universe was going to throw at me next. Jax walked over to my mom, snatched the shears right out of her hand, walked into the kitchen, and came back out with the heavy razor-sharp meat cleaver. He held it out to her. His voice was dead calm. He smiled, looking like an absolute psychopath. Use this one, Mom. It'll be over faster. My mother finally broke, collapsing into a hysterical wail. Oh God, I'm cursed. The algorithm feed exploded. Jax, you absolute legend. Jax is the only real one in this whole story. He couldn't break the system's rules. He had to play the part. So he spent his whole life pretending to be the golden child who hated his sister. But underneath it all, he's been protecting her, keeping her away from the fallout of that toxic household, scaring away the predators. He knew she was desperate for affection, knew she'd fall for the first guy who gave her the time of day. So he threw everything he had at keeping her financially independent, started taking beatings in underground fight clubs when he was a kid, taking punches to the face just to buy her textbooks. When he heard her college roommates were laughing at her for not having a laptop, he went to the unsanctioned rings, let himself get used as a human heavy bag, just to get the cash. Bought her top-tier cashmere sweaters without blinking. While his own clothes were falling apart, watching my brother standing there, guarding my back, with the fire dying down and the courtyard wrecked, my parents sobbing on the floor, the glacier in my chest shattered. I was never actually fighting this suffocating world alone. My dad was bruised and bleeding, but he still wouldn't back down. I'm going to your university tomorrow. I'm filing a formal complaint. I'm going to make sure they strip your admission. I went back to campus and waited. Nothing happened. I made some calls. Turns out, Jax had forced my dad to chug an entire bottle of cheap moonshine, then shoved him into the driver's seat of his truck and immediately called the cops to report a DUI. He even asked my mom if she wanted to file a complaint too. Said he'd gladly force-feed her a bottle and send her right in behind him. After securing my spot in the grad program, I officially joined the research team Liam was running, negotiated a 70% equity stake in the intellectual property. We used that IP to leverage a joint venture with Chloe's family conglomerate, Biotech Vanguard, turned a $10 million valuation into hard equity. The moment the ink dried on the incorporation, we locked in a massive contract from Vanguard to cover our seed operations. After Silas dropped his massive Series A funding, my personal equity was diluted, but the paper valuation was sitting around $300 million. I was sitting in a boardroom, going head-to-head with industry titans over 9-figure acquisitions, when my phone buzzed with a text from my dad. "Hey kiddo. Coming home for the holidays. Got a guy I want you to meet, pulls in $1 million a year. He's divorced, but he only has one kid." I let out a deep soul-cleansing sigh. Thank God I worked myself to the bone. Thank God I put my life on the line for this company. Otherwise I'd be chained to some balding, divorced middle manager with a kid for the rest of my life. On my 28th birthday, I rented out the highest-end lounge in the city for Jax, watched him styling a slicked-back undercut, wearing a tailored black suit with no shirt underneath, a massive gold Rolex catching the strobe lights. A table full of his street lieutenants were hyping him up. He ignored them, just kept his head down, using a tiny silver spoon to meticulously spread a massive glob of hot sauce over a plate of imported foie gras. He caught me staring, flashed a massive, blinding grin. "Hey boss, you got rich too fast. My palate hasn't caught up yet." I slid a velvet Cartier box across the table. "Take that cheap chain off your neck and put this on. Be serious tonight, the actual singer is coming to perform for you." "Don't embarrass me." Jax froze. "Wait, which singer?" Not my favorite pop star. Are you serious?" The roar from his lieutenants nearly blew my eardrums out. Later that night, Jax was completely wired. He's massive. He literally picked me up and threw me over his shoulder like a sack of flour, raided me around the VIP room. "Pay your respects to the godmother." "Drink up for the godmother," I asked Jax what he wanted to do with his life. He said he wanted to open a nightclub, the kind with a ridiculous amount of beautiful women, so I funded it. He ran it flawlessly. It definitely had a ridiculous amount of beautiful women and a ridiculous amount of male models. The only problem was he kept hiding them in my apartment. They'd just pop out of my closet, usually without a shirt on, in the middle of the night. It was absolutely terrifying. At the end of the year, I bought Jax a Hummer. He scratched his head and admitted he couldn't pass the written portion of the driving exam, so I hired him a full-time driver. For the Lunar New Year, I pulled the most understated Audi I owned out of the garage and drove home. My parents didn't ask about my personal life. When they asked what I was doing for work, I just told them, research. While my dad was burning incense at the family altar, he was praying out loud, "Please let Jax find a good wife. Please protect him and make sure he pulls in $1 million a year." Jax spat on the floor right behind him. "Bad luck. Shut the hell up. You trying to curse my sister into bankruptcy." 3 years later, the company went public on the Nasdaq. On the day of the IPO bell ringing, I stood on the podium, staring out at the blinding flashes of the press cameras. Chloe and Liam were sitting in the front row, holding hands, smiling like idiots. They got married last year. Liam was now the director of the Vanguard Joint Laboratory. Chloe was my most ruthless and effective chief operating officer. Jax was sitting on the opposite aisle. Sharp suit, tie perfectly knotted. He dyed his hair back to black. But he stubbornly kept that single tuft of bleach blonde right in the front. He was officially the company's head of global security and a major shareholder. In his words, "I gotta guard my sister's empire." My parents weren't there. In reality, I hadn't stepped foot in that house in 2 years. Jax wired them enough cash every month to keep them comfortable, but that was the absolute limit. They tried sending messages through the neighbors, saying they wanted to see me. Jax shut it down every single time. "Why the hell would she come back?" His exact words were, "When you were lighting her future on fire in that courtyard. Did you ever stop to think about where she'd be today?" Floor manager handed me the microphone. I took it, looked out over the sea of faces in the trading room, took a deep breath. A lot of people ask me how Biotech Vanguard went from a basement lab to a $10 billion publicly traded titan in exactly 3 years. As my voice echoed off the walls of the exchange, my answer is simple. It's because we refuse to accept the word impossible. And we refuse to accept the roles we were told to play. I swept my eyes over the crowd, over Chloe, over Liam, over Jax, and finally into the dark shadows at the back of the hall. Locking eyes with a very familiar silhouette, Silas was standing there, suit jacket draped over his forearm. He silently raised a crystal champagne flute in my direction. I pulled my gaze back to the cameras. This world, it loves to slap labels on us, to dictate our character settings. You're a daughter, so you must sacrifice. You're a student, so you must fall in line. You're a woman, so you must settle. But I'm here to say, screw the labels. The trading floor went dead silent for a fraction of a second, then erupted into a deafening roar of applause and laughter. My name is Frankie. That is the only label I answer to. And this is the script I wrote for myself. The opening bell rang, a sharp, clear, endless sound, drowning out the noise of the world. The narrative feed flickered one last time. Congratulations, female-led. Happy rap party. No, this isn't a rap. This story is pure fiction. If any of this sounds familiar, it's because you're out there rewriting your own script right now. The bell echoed into silence. I looked down. Jax was screaming his head off. Chloe was wiping mascara off her cheeks. Liam was laughing so hard he was doubling over. And in the corner of the room, Silas was gone, leaving nothing but an empty champagne flute on a cocktail table. I stepped off the podium. My brother was the first one to break the line. He pulled me into a massive, crushing hug. He leaned into my ear. His voice was cracking. You flipped the script. You actually did it. I patted him on the back. We did it. My phone vibrated in my pocket, a new text message from Silas. The supporting cast has finished their lines. Time to get back to the lab. The prospectus for the new initiative is in your inbox. I smiled and typed back, you're the money now. It's time you start calling me Madam Vice President. A few seconds later, the reply came through. Understood. Madam Vice President. So, when does the VP have time to discuss the Series B's? Locked my screen, looked out through the massive glass windows at the morning sun. The new script had just started.